I am proof that programs such as Change Court and drug rehabilitation centers work for those who want change. I came into Change Court with nothing, no self-esteem, no relations with any family, no friends, no place I called home. Today, this addict that you fight for knows she is so much more than an addict.
We wanted to inspire you as they've inspired me, because they are mothers and daughters and sisters and dog lovers. We wanted you to know they're more than statistics. And I think when they're telling you their stories, they're telling you that so that you know they're real people with real feelings and a real commitment.
There's only 3 courts like this in our whole state. And so Judge Russell is a leader. I'm a big supporter of what you're doing here because I think it's clearly more successful than the alternative.
I've learned many things through Change Court, but most importantly, I learned how to live and not just exist. I can honestly say that today, because of Change Court, I'm not only a productive member of society, but I want to be a productive member.
I wanted to say, first of all, I'm grateful for Judge Russell for giving me the second chance at life. I got a great relationship with my mom and my 2 kids, and I never thought I would have that, and I do. And I'm starting to love myself.
I share all this with you because when you think of Change Court or rehabilitation centers or matters concerning addiction, I hope I come to mind that you are able to tell my story of recovery and be encouraged to keep fighting for us. Thank you.
Officially starting?
Yes.
All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and perseverance. So kind of like the challenges we face in Change Court every day. And then if you're old like me, there's just always this extra layer of technology. And thank you, Dr. Espinola and Juliana, for setting this all up. So that's Change Court. That's this Delta sign. And then you see the Hamilton County seal. And so we can turn the page. Okay, so this is just an outline. So what you're going to learn tonight is we're just going to put lots of pieces together to show you what Change Court is. So what does it mean to be a sex trafficked person? There's a huge piece of this program that is different than any other specialty court in Hamilton County is the trauma focus. That is Dr. Espinola's specialty. We're going to talk about how the connection between being sex trafficked and addiction. I'm going to tell you what a specialty docket is. And when you put all those things together, that's what Change Court addresses. And we're going to talk about what it means to be a mentor and what your obligations are. And thanks to Cheviot United Methodist Church, I was nominated. They nominated me, and I'm a Cincinnati Enquirer Woman of the Year. And I was interviewed this morning by WVXU, and they haven't told me when the program is going to air, but the man picked up right away that I talked about a trafficked person and a prostituted person instead of a prostitute. And the difference is because they're victims. So Change Court is always a hybrid. So I can't help someone unless they're facing a charge, which is the criminal side. They're a defendant. They've been charged with a crime. But we are seeing them not as a criminal. We are seeing them as a person who has experienced many different types of adverse childhood experiences. That's a fancy sociological, psychological term for trauma. And so they are prostitutes, but they didn't really get there of their own free choice. When you think about it, when you were 7, what did you want to be? Maybe I wanted to be an airline stewardess or a teacher. Did not want to be a prostitute. So something happens along the way. Some trauma usually happens along the way, which causes someone to feel so degraded that they feel this is the way they need to earn their living. And it could be another person. It could be an experience that had happened to them or they observed. And it could be the very status of being an addiction. So those are all things that makes you be a sex trafficked person, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we'll turn the page. The people who are here with me, that Shannon Thompson, wave Shannon, she's always with me. She's been with me since the very first day. Beth has been with me since I could hire a coordinator, and they are our yin and yang. And Shannon is, I know, she knows I say this, I talk about my probation officer so long that people think I'm on probation. She is like the Army, the toughest job you'll ever love. Well, she's the toughest probation officer a participant will ever love. And she is with our girls 24/7. She leaves her phone on, something I would not do, but Shannon has chosen to do this. And Beth came along a little bit later. Beth and I worked together in another life, and she was a victim advocate, so I knew she would know how to be supportive. And she's a survivor of her own type of experience, which has nothing to do with sex trafficking. So that's our yin and our yang. You've met Dr. Espinola, and we'll turn the page. Let's see. So how do you get into change court? You must be a trafficked person or usually also an addict. So the Ohio Supreme Court describes change court as a drug court plus, meaning that we offer all the services of a drug court plus, and that plus is trauma that is not offered in our traditional drug courts. But when I have to get certified, which I'll tell you about later, by the Ohio Supreme Court, we follow the guidelines and the mandates for the National Drug Court Association. So it doesn't quite fit. Not everything in the drug court structure fits change court, but most of it does. So we're a drug court with trauma. It's 2 years. The theory, the structure is 2 years of intensive supervision, probation. Actually, all of the participants do have a diagnosis of addiction. They also have all experienced a lot of trauma. It's a voluntary program. It's technically offered to men, women, and trans people. But since 2014, we've only had women want to be in the program. We had one trans who ran very early in the program and then got into other situations so that we were not able to take that person back. So we're going to describe all that. So we'll turn the page. So what does it mean to be sex trafficked? So the difference between a prostitute and a prostituted person is what I'm going to explain to you. So one thing is there are three different forms of prostitution. One is prostitution, which is any sexual activity, which includes a lot of different ways that you can engage in intercourse, vaginal intercourse, digital penetration, anal intercourse, oral intercourse. Those are all sexual conduct. Then we have touching of erogenous zones. And then more than that, any sexual activity, which includes a sexual performance such as nude dancing, pole dancing, strip dancing, nudity-oriented performance, nudity-oriented photographs. Those are all things that people can do that are crimes. So what's the difference between, so that's prostitution. Soliciting is when you're actually negotiating your price for the prostitution act. And loitering is when you're standing on the street corner waiting to solicit someone to engage. So they're all various sort of stages of prostitution. And sexual activity for hire, another word for that would be commercial sex or transactional sex, sex for money, sex for drugs, sex for a place to live. So all of that is just plain old prostitution or soliciting. So that's the regular prostitution, soliciting, loitering. It becomes, so that's what a prostitute is. A prostitute becomes a prostituted person when they are engaging in any of that type of action under any form of coercion or duress. Your will is overcome, any force, any threat of force. So we can turn the page. You can see that definition of sex trafficking has been around since 2014. So that's the loitering. If you're at an entrance, if you're at a street corner. So now we're talking about compelling. So what's the definition of compelling sexual activity? Look at all those different ways: induce, procure, encourage, solicit, request, or otherwise facilitate. We're not talking about a minor. I'm not dealing with minors. But you're compelling an adult for change court, an adult. And the act of compulsion does not require that the compulsion be openly displayed or physically exerted. Compulsion occurs when a victim's will is overcome by force, fear, duress, or intimidation. Actually, that definition of force is the same definition of force in all the Ohio statutes, criminal statutes involving rape. So you don't have to have a gun to your head or a knife to your throat to be compelled. It can be something much more subtle. And for us, oftentimes it looks just like a child molester, a predator who is preying on an adolescent, who grooms that vulnerable, kind of lost adolescent and gains their confidence, cons them, and then manipulates them. Well, you don't have anywhere to stay tonight. You're a runaway. Come stay with me, and I'll give you a safe place to sleep tonight. I won't touch you. You'll be safe. And let me get you something warm to eat. By the way, it's going to be cold tonight. And that might go on for a couple of days. And now a young adolescent whose parents don't care if they come home when it's dark out, don't care if they go to school or not. Maybe the parent is a drug addict. Maybe someone in the family has molested the child. The child has no self-esteem, and someone is telling this child, you're wonderful, you're beautiful, you're so special. That child is now in love with this predator who has just totally gained their confidence. And after a day or two or a week, that predator will say, well, now we're a family unit. It's you and me against the world. You need to help contribute to our family income so I can keep providing you this nice place to stay and these nice meals. So I'm going to set you up on some dates with my friends, and I'll be right around the corner. And by the way, would you like some drugs? And now this child is hooked on, because they love this person. They feel great because they've been given drugs, and they are literally hooked in every sense of the word. Sure, I'll go on dates with my boyfriend. He loves me. I love him. I'll do anything for him. And now she's engaged in sexual activity. The boyfriend's getting the money, and he's keeping her safe because he's around the corner, maybe with a weapon, and he's taking the money and he's controlling the money. So a sex trafficked person has all these elements. Because once they're engaged, once they're hooked like this in a relationship with their boyfriend, they'll do anything for them. But if they don't bring home enough money, this adolescent, they can be beaten, they can be threatened, they can be burned with cigarettes, they can be slashed. Beth has seen that, someone pretty much gutted. And so now there's kind of that domestic violence thing going on. And to love, well, our prostituted person thinks she's in a love relationship, but she's being battered and she still loves this person. So there's domestic violence, there's a power thing going on. There can often be rape, obviously assault and felony assault is going on. We've already had the child molestation coming in. See, all those different pieces of crimes are part of a prostituted person's psychological profile. And if they haven't gone out there on their own as a runaway, we have people who may have had mothers who were drug addicts and their mothers have prostituted them. And when their mothers haven't paid their dope boys, then the dope boys have taken the children as payment. So very, very, very traumatic things are going on when there's this compelling prostitution, when you become a prostituted person. And by the time they're into that web, there's no way out. And they have no self-esteem even to try and get out. And years before I was involved in change court, the police, the personal crimes police department would tell me that all the time. They knew they had come upon a prostitute. They knew she had been beaten. She would not name her attacker because she never felt anyone would believe her. She has no self-esteem. She's a streetwalker. And even if she could identify the person, they'd say it was just a contract dispute. She didn't perform the services she contracted for. So these are examples of people who have been beaten and they've been trafficked. This is in, I believe this was Hamilton County. I put this in the materials a long time ago because when we started in 2014, certain of my colleagues did not believe we had this going on in Hamilton County. So I always want to bring this to you. Yes, we do. So we can turn a page. We do not require a person in change court to testify against their trafficker. We are concentrating on healing the person in front of us, and we never make it a condition of probation that they testify against their trafficker. Everyone always wants statistics, so here are some statistics for you. I think it's fairly true. I think every one of our participants has been prostituted before the age of 15. They will all tell you they were molested, they were betrayed as children. We are consistently the 4th or 5th highest volume of human trafficking reported in the country. That's what's reported to the national hotline, National Human Trafficking Hotline. There's a site you can go to called Polaris that tracks that. So that's just what's reported. We have a high reporting rate here. Of our participants, they've all had multiple assailants. Some have had traumatic brain injury. They've all had hepatitis C, chronic health needs. We get them all to liver doctors. All have been to jail or prison. Jail being the local incarceration, prison being statewide on a more serious offense. We have a 2017 graduate who's still around who told us, we counted him up, at graduation she'd been arrested 57 times. So
hospitalized, been in and out of jail 57 times.
The significance of that is, to my knowledge, since she's graduated from Change Court, she has not been rearrested. So that's a pretty impressive statistic. We had a woman in our program who had served 17 years in the penitentiary. So we're really offering certainly a change. So we'll go on to I have more current statistics from 2017, but I think I have them up to 2019, but we'll go on. I don't want to, I want Dr. Espinola to speak. Most have been in treatment multiple times. So that's significant too, because a lot of them feel nothing's ever worked, this won't work either. I can relate to that when I go on a diet. But, and as Dr. Espinola has helped me see a different perspective, you know, I mean, I knew in my heart I can never give up, but Dr. Espinola literally puts us in their shoes and say, think of it, these women have always been told you're a failure. They were betrayed by their family. They had no self-esteem. The person that they thought they loved and loved them has betrayed them. Possibly they failed in other programs. So when they say, I can't do this at some point in the program, that's kind of expected. But we need to tell them, no, you're not a failure. We're not accepting that. And I will remember forever that she has explained that to me when she talks to med students who get stressed. Med students who could be more higher achieving than med students who want to quit. They're reach their stress point, their tipping point, and she will tell them, no, you're not a failure. We do not accept that here. So that's what we're about. So we address everything. I mean, really, we do. It's 365 degrees wrap around pretty much at any time because of that Shannon who keeps her phone on. See her, I got her smiling in case you don't know which one she is over there. So because of our team, which probably we'll get to later, I'm skipping around. So everyone, anywhere our participants are in treatment, their treatment provider is part of our treatment team. So currently we have people in Talbot House in a jail-based treatment, and their case manager is there as part of our team. Then they move to the Cheney Allen Crossroads program, which is in the old Roman Hospital. If you've been around Cincinnati as long as I have, it's there, and we have someone, DeVorn, has been with us since the beginning there. And then they move to Off the Streets, and then Off the Streets has a wonderful, wonderful housing connection. And from when they graduate from Off the Streets, they move into their own housing, which has really proved a godsend. And we can also partner with First Step Home, group home for women and children, especially if they still have children or are trying to get in custody of their children. By the time we meet them, most of our participants have lost custody of their children. If they're pregnant, we can place them at First Step Home because First Step Home partners with Good Sam for the HOPE program to deal with heroin addicted mothers and prenatal care and postnatal care. We can also partner with Block Ministries, who has housing. We have partnered with CAT, the Center for Addiction Treatment, for short-term housing. We have, the Engagement Center. Talbot House has a new option called the Engagement Center, which we can use for temporary housing. And then we've recently learned through one of Dr. Espinola's interns, I think it's Sojourner House in Butler County that we can use. So we have lots of places, and those places usually will give change court priority in housing. Often those places are full, but they will give us priority because they know they're going to get good results if we're supervising them as well. So we can turn the page, see what else we get to. How do you become eligible for change court? Well, first of all, you have to have a pending charge, because the whole concept is you're on probation, and no one is on probation unless they have a charge. So when you're on probation, you get a charge. The judge sentences you to jail and then suspends most of those jail days and puts you on probation. And for change court, it's a period of 2 years. So that's the basic premise. This is all about heroin. I mean, heroin has been in the news so much. I don't know how much you want to hear of all this. Basically, heroin is very cheap. And as you can see, you can take it by pill, by liquid, smoked, snorted. And so we have had people who started with prescription pain medicine, and then when doctors stopped prescribing prescription pain medicine and they were hooked, they found another resource out on the street, and then they became hooked on heroin. So you can buy it very readily on the streets of Cincinnati, really almost anywhere in Hamilton County. And so the reason our people get hepatitis is they get, fixated on the need for their next heroin hit. And if they're shooting it, they share needles and they don't clean needles, and they get hepatitis. They can get HIV from it also, other bloodborne diseases. It's very hard to get off heroin by yourself. And going through detox, you'll feel very, very sick. You won't die, but you might wish that you were going to die. In jail, they don't offer very much of a medical detox. It's almost a cold turkey. The CAT, the Center for Addictions Treatment, offers a little bit of relief when you're going through detox, so make it a little bit more comfortable. You can die from alcohol withdrawal. You cannot die from heroin withdrawal, which is why it's so hard to stop. You just feel bad. So we can, and then when you're just focused on getting your next hit, you don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't have a place to sleep, you steal from your parents, and then they cut themselves off from you. You lose custody of your children, you're out on the street. And that's the people that we find. So we can go on to the next page. And then, of course, if a baby's born addicted, that's a whole other issue. Our problem now is mixed into a lot of our street heroin. And so people buying any street drugs, if it's cocaine, marijuana, heroin, I'm guessing crystal meth, people who buy street drugs like that, it's not FDA approved, and it's all cut with fentanyl now. And the thing is, you don't know how much fentanyl there is. And so people will die not only from heroin overdose, but because the heroin also has fentanyl in it, and you don't even know it. So in 2016, we had a big surge in Cincinnati on the west side of town where a number of people died over a weekend. You would all think, oh, I need to stay away from that. That's bad stuff. Addicts flocked to that corner to buy because they knew that stuff was going to make them feel so good. So fentanyl is a very, very small amounts. It's synthetic, and it can kill. Carfentanil is elephant tranquilizer. It takes, I think it's the amount that's on Abe Lincoln's eye in a penny. That much can kill you, I think. It's very dangerous for our first responders who are going out and trying to help someone, because if they touch it, they can get high, they can OD. This is what Narcan is used for. So we'll go to the next page. This again, I have more stats, but we can go on. Those are coroner's lab statistics. That surge that I was talking about, this is Narcan. Medically assisted treatment is MAT. Suboxone and methadone are used. They're legal. So it's a good crutch for withdrawing. But you're sort of just moving to legal kind of heroin. Some of those medications are given to heroin addicted pregnant women. There's a program in the jail that's similar to the HOPE program. They take pregnant women out daily to get them a shot so the baby doesn't go through withdrawal. So I've already talked about Good Sam and the First Step program and the HOPE program. Our preference in Change Court is to use Vivitrol. So unlike Suboxone and Methadone, which exchanges an illegal high for a legal high, Vivitrol actually blocks the receptors in our brain that crave the high and that receive the heroin. So it's blocked. So you don't have the craving. And it's a once a month injection. Medicaid will pay for it. We have a really good program when someone starts in our jail-based treatment, while they're in jail, lots of things are happening for those first 90 days. They're detoxing, they're getting stable. If they want, we can reconnect them to family. Sometimes that's too soon. But we're also doing blood panel tests to make sure that their liver is not so damaged that they cannot be given Vivitrol. If they want Vivitrol, we will give them their first shot of Vivitrol a day or two before they're leaving jail. And then that shot will totally block their cravings for about 30 days. And then in that 30 days, we have them connected to Medicaid so that we can get them their second shot of Vivitrol. So just a smooth transition. When they're locked up, they have no access to it. And when they're out, they're no longer craving it. So it's very important for us to get our people connected to Medicaid, which we've worked very hard on that process in our early days, so that a lot of them need antidepressants, other medications. So we make sure they have Medicaid, and then Medicaid will cover that Vivitrol shot, which we help arrange for them. If you don't have Medicaid, it costs about $1,500 a month. Some of them can't take the shot. I think Cheney Allen does not allow the methadone shot. They prefer the pill form. The active ingredient is naltrexone, and they take the pill form. So we get it. And they can stay on that for as long as they want. The issue with Vivitrol is you don't crave getting high, but you might still crave the habit, the behavior of shooting up. Similar to when someone is giving up smoking, they might be dealing with craving nicotine, but they still want that feeling of smoking. So when someone is on Vivitrol, they have to be the medicine, the pharmacies recommend that they have co-occurring counseling with it, so they understand you might still want to shoot up, not to get high, but because you like that habit. Don't do it because you won't get high and your body won't tell you you're high and you'll die. So knock on wood, we haven't had that issue. We did have a woman who was with us for quite some time, achieved quite a lot of success. And somewhere along the line, she decided she wanted methadone. Well, unfortunately, one of our service providers does not allow methadone in their program for reasons we won't go into here. It triggers people. They see you getting high or nodding off. So I can't allow methadone because one of my residential treatment providers won't allow it. And she felt so strongly that she wanted methadone that she left our program. So now we're going to do a much better job of letting people know ahead of time. Can't do methadone, but you can do Vivitrol. So, okay, so we've talked about heroin. We've talked about what the profile of a person coming in this program looks like. Now, what is a specialty court? So I still do my regular job as a municipal court judge, and that's usually every morning at 9 o'clock. I average about 50 cases a morning. Don't ask how that works. It does. That's what there's 14 of us. That's what we all do. But on Wednesday afternoons, I change hats. I stop my docket. I have a light docket in the morning. And at noon, the specialty court meets, which, like I told you, anyone who's getting treatment from a provider, they are at our table. And we meet privately, confidentially, and we discuss everyone's progress. That goes on up till 12 to 1:30, 2, and then at 2. Meanwhile, our participants meet in my courtroom, and they're doing mindfulness activities, which Dr. Espinola and her interns are usually responsible for. It has been mentors, it has been Beth and Shannon and myself, we've all come up with ideas, but arts and crafts, we've had martial arts, we've had personal finance, lots of things. So the two sides meet, but the legal requirements of a specialty docket. So this is special title, sort of like the good seal of approval that you have to earn from the Ohio Supreme Court if any judge wants to hold themselves out as a specialty court. Somewhere maybe 10 years ago, the late Chief Justice Moyer from Ohio Supreme Court said, I want these specialty courts all over Ohio to have some consistent standards, because we have Franklin County and Columbus, Hamilton County and Cincinnati that were multi-judges, 14 judges comprise our courts. And then we have one pony courts, you know, in Elyria or Fostoria, Ohio, where there's one municipal court judge, and he and his assistant do everything for the court. And here in Hamilton County, we have court administrators, we have probation, we have pretrial, we have people who help us schedule our cases. So we have a lot more resources. So the judge said, we want something consistent throughout Ohio. So they created this specialty docket commission, and it keeps evolving. And you have to, once you get certification, you have to reapply. I think they've moved it now to every 3 years. It was every 2 years. So I last had to submit it, I think it was January 2019. And so I have to write policy and make sure that I'm including, there were over 80 standards, 80 mandated requirements that the Supreme Court had to see in my program. Some of them are really basic, like I had to have a team comprised of service providers, lawyers, the judge. I have to it has to be voluntary. The people may be eligible, but if they don't want it, I can't make them do the program. I have to have phases. I have to have rewards if they're doing well, and some kind of consequences or sanctions if they're not doing well. I have to take into account poverty. So don't give them very high fines to pay, or give them an opportunity to work off fines and community service. I have to be gender sensitive. There's lots of things. Anyway, so that's literally why I can call myself a specialty court. Actually, when we started in 2014, I did not even seek the certification till the end of 2016. I was doing this work for 2 years without seeking the title, without seeking the certification, because we all decided we could save a life. Let's actually do the work and then go back and ask for the certification. And the significance in getting the certification meant that we qualified to ask for Supreme Court money, which is kind of a hassle to get our hands on, but nevertheless, I couldn't get it without getting that certification. So there are only 4 adult human trafficking dockets in all of Ohio. So when you think of Ohio, there are 88 counties. Hamilton County, we have 14 judges, but you know, every county, Franklin County, I think has 14. Every other judge has something less than 14, but put it this way, there's a lot more than 88 judges in Hamilton County, and only 4 have seen fit to take this on. It could be they're not interested. It could be they don't have this population in their jurisdiction. But I started this when 2 Cincinnati police officers came to me and asked for help with a problem that was dumped in their lap by Cincinnati City Council, which came to them from the West McMicken Community Council. So that group said, there's prostitution on West McMicken. We want our neighborhood back, and we want something good to happen for these women. Nothing ever changes. The police arrest them. They're back out there the next day, and nothing's ever happening for them. So they went to City Hall, and City Hall turned it over to the police, who are great critical thinkers and community-oriented people. And they came to me, and they didn't know they were describing a specialty court, but I did. They wanted a program for this specific population. They wanted a woman to preside over it and to create structure and treatment to handle all these prostitution-related cases that came in, instead of them being split over 14 different judges. So this is what a specialty court does, and I knew that because I was presiding over a mental health court docket. And so we made sure we had enough of a population, enough numbers of this type of arrest to justify this effort, which we did. And then we looked to see if anyone else was doing it. And Judge Paul Herbert, who is our hero, we found was doing it up the road in Columbus.
The police were bringing me search warrants on human trafficking cases. And the prosecutor started showing me all the pictures and bringing the victims up with the bright red rings around their neck from fresh choking, hair pulled out, fresh burn marks where the guy had burned a cigarette in their skin just to torture them. And as this was going on, the sheriff brought the next defendant out on the wall, and I looked over, and that's when I saw a woman who looked just like one of these victims. She had that same aura about her. And so I looked down at the file and saw prostitute. And I thought, we ought to start looking at the person that we're arresting for prostitution more like she's a victim of human trafficking. Just prior to this event, I was trying to teach my daughters the book, The Purpose-Driven Life. So my one little daughter, she said, "Hey, Dad, you're doing really good teaching us about this purpose in life, but what's your purpose in life?" And I was like, oh man, it just got me right there. So that night I just went upstairs and said a quick prayer. I said, I know I've got this really interesting job. So I said, if there's any way you could show me how to be significant in my work, I'd appreciate that. Then things started to happen very rapidly. I started researching and I found some amazing truths that totally blew my mind away. 1,500 women charged with prostitution a year coming through Columbus. Women who are involved in prostitution reoffend 80% of the time. So that's the revolving door syndrome. The average age of the first sexual abuse is 8 years old. 96% of them are runaways before they become involved in prostitution. 62% of all women enter prostitution before they're 18 years old. I couldn't believe that people were taking advantage of our women and girls and other vulnerable people in Columbus in such a horrible way. So we started a court in 2009 to allow them to exit this deadly lifestyle. Okay, so Ashley, way to go. This is Changing Actions, Change Habits, certified Ashley Martin, graduated phase 2 intentional program. CATCH stands for Changing Actions to Change Habits because we ask women to change everything about their lives. CATCH Court is a 2-year intensive probation. They have individual counseling as well as group sessions. That's kind of hard for me.
Okay, I know how you feel, but I can be very angry. I spent most of my time surrounded by them. I don't even know I have my own home. Like, it's like a legit community. It's amazing.
These women have multiple complex trauma. That's at the core of their issue. And when you know how to engage them with trauma-informed approach, they will respond. So instead of saying, "What's wrong with you?" I learned to say, "I wonder what happened to you." All right, Tina. Hi, how many days do you have?
208.
Wow. All right, so where are you at with that GED?
I didn't like your fractions.
Oh my God, the statistics that we're now able to share, that if you spend 6 months or more in the program, 62% of these women never get arrested again. And if you graduate from the program, it's a high 90 percentile, never get arrested again. I think you can say it saves money. It saves police time. It saves court time. But for me, that's not where I consider the success. When I see multi-generational healing from parents to children and the women getting their children back and how important that is to those children, that's what makes it worth it to me.
If it wasn't for CATCH Court, I would be back out on the street. It saved my life. They gave me my life back. They gave me a second chance. I have a home that I can actually call mine. I have a 1-year-old daughter. I got custody of my 14-year-old twins back, my grandbabies and my kids. To be a part of their lives again, it's a wonderful. I could be a good example for my kids. And my daughter would never see me the way my sons did. I may not have been a good mom, but I'm one heck of a grandma.
this has been the best thing that's happened in my career and maybe my life. And now I can look my daughter in the eye and say, hey, now we know what Dad's purpose was, don't we?
So Shannon and I and one of the cops and another, we went up to Columbus to watch it. And that judge put his hands on my shoulders and said, you've got to do this. And it looked just like the mental health court docket with a different population. And we said we'd do it. So that's how we started. So actually, at the same time I was working to create this, Judge Cassidy in Cleveland Municipal Court was also working on it at the same time. And she actually got her certification before me, but we were working at the same time. And now Judge Singer, who Dr. Espinola knows, has created a program for a female woman drug court. I believe it's all felonies, though. So mine is more misdemeanors, so the less serious tier of charges. And I think now there's one, maybe in Akron or Youngstown. Anyway, we're still sort of cutting edge here. I'm really happy about that. I'm happy to lay the tracks. So we'll go on to the next page. We talked about that. And we've talked about that. So we get, that's a picture from our grad. That's all the people on our advisory committee. That's one of the things the Supreme Court requires, but we can keep going. This is one of our early graduates. This is our advisory committee. If you look, you'll see a wide variety of social service types, law enforcement types, behavioral health types, medical people, faith-based people. So it does indeed take a village. So we'll go on. I've told you about our treatment team. I've told you who's eligible. You have to have a pending charge, but the pending charge does not have to be for prostitution, loitering, or soliciting. It could be for shoplifting. It could be for trespass. And let me tell you how those cases are related to prostitution. So one participant's story, she actually got a safe harbor expungement, was she was wooed in just the way I told you. And if she didn't bring home enough money, actually she was burned with cigarette marks, which she showed me. And it was her responsibility to provide dinner if she didn't make enough money. So she had to shoplift dinner. And that's how a shoplift charge, if you just peel the layers back a little bit, you can find a trafficked person in there. We had another person who, Dr. Espinola got her cat from this person. She had a domestic violence charge, and she was 26 years old, and it was the domestic violence was cutting her sister, I think, with a knife. And she had no record before this, and she'd been in the military. So I did a court forensic examination on her. I wanted to know, why did she go from zero record to cutting her sister? And the doctors in the court clinic who had helped me create this program called me and said, she's describing sexual performances, so nude dancing. Is she eligible for change court because she's got anxiety from head to toe? Well, yes, she fits the legal criteria. So she came into the program with domestic violence. So you do not, so the obvious thing is if they have any kind of current charge, whether it's prostitution or not, or any other kind of current charge with a prior, even just an arrest history of prostitution-related charges, or a current charge of any nature, and they're known by a community partner to have prostituted. So like the woman who disclosed to the psychiatrist that she had engaged in sexual or sexually oriented performances, or a cop could tell me, Judge, we've never arrested this person for prostitution, but we talk to her all the time. We know she's eligible. On the other hand, there are people who look, I've had a case manager come to me and say, I think these people would be a good fit. They're in Talbot House right now. And I said, I need to know, they either have a current charge of this nature, a prior even arrest of this nature, or they've disclosed to you that they've been trafficked. If you tell me any one of those things, they'll be eligible. Well, she did not have that, so I couldn't take them. I have since this, so misdemeanors are the lower level of crimes like shoplifting, domestic violence, prostitution. But I can take felonies, and we have taken felonies now. So people who have felony drug charges I've taken. We had a woman who I think she had a burglary or a robbery that we took into the program. We have found a way to take them. It's a logistical challenge, but if the felony judge is willing to transfer probation to us, the defendant wants it, we can make it happen. We have even taken courtesy probation supervision from other counties. So Judge Campbell in Fairfield County, who we have connections to in many ways, she's the national president of the NAMI, Mental Illness Association. We have shared probation supervision for her people. So we're broadening our outreach. So we can go, let's see what else there is on here to tell you about. So I've told you we meet at noon, and then we meet up together at 1:30. You can come watch. In fact, if you think you want to be a mentor, or if you're not sure you want to make the commitment to be a mentor, there are other things you can do. But one thing is you should really come watch Docket. It might become tricky with COVID right now, but we're still operating. So, and we will give you Beth's number to call or email if you are looking for that. And Beth, if you think you're interested, Beth, want to make sure that I remind you, we also would send you some documentation for you to sign, because you need to do a criminal background check, which costs $5. Okay, next page. Those are all the things we offered. I want to stop because I want to give Dr. Espinola time. Medical detox treatment, jail detox, lots of things we offer, all that medical care, housing, reconnections. We offer, by the time they graduate, we'll stop there. By the time we graduate, they will have a significant sober time under their belts. They will have their own housing. They will have a job, because we want to make sure that they can make it out on their own. And that happens in the sort of the last semester of the 2 years of the program, that we're working towards that empowerment and independence for them, so that when they leave us, they're really out there. They still can keep all their medical doctors. They can still see Dr. Espinola, because she can see them through Medicaid. So we're trying to offer a lot. So the only other thing I want to tell you before I hand this over is what is the mentoring requirements. So what we try and do, although we're a little flexible with it, but we noticed where's our biggest failure, and the thing that we need to work on, I should put it that way, is we offer this wraparound, really tight hug for 2 years, and then you graduate, and we say, come back and see us, and they don't, which is okay, because most of them are working and they're doing their thing, but they can slide back into bad habits. And so as we try and stop that, so Cheviot United Methodist Church also brainstormed on that, and they're trying to create a program where they will offer something once a month, like a book club or cooking club or personal finance group, or something that current participants and graduates can come to, just to keep them in touch and to keep them in touch with their mentors. But the big thing is a mentor. So the thought behind a mentor is, in this 2-year program, we don't assign a participant a mentor till they're in the 2nd year of the program. So we know they're really in it to win it, and they're stable. They're not hopefully going to freak any mentor out. And then the commitment is 1 hour, 2 times a month. So it's 2 hours a month that we ask for. It can be on a Zoom meeting these days. It could be a walk in the park. We don't want you to spend a lot of money. We don't want you to have them in your homes. We just want to model good, clean fun for them and show them how to develop healthy relationships, because they only know really people in addiction or people in recovery, and that's what they talk about. They don't have an idea of, do you think the right person got voted off Dancing with the Stars last night? Or, sometimes they have interpersonal conflicts at work and they just want to talk, sound it out with someone. So it's nothing exquisite that you're offering them in some ways, but it's so exquisite because it's a piece of you that is priceless. Money can't buy. You can't be bought, and neither can they. And so it's 2 hours. You can do more than 2 hours a month. You can meet in groups. You can meet, if you have a friend that you're doing this with, you can share a mentee, because we don't want our people ever to feel let down or deserted, abandoned, because they've had that experience before in their life. So maybe if you and a friend are planning to meet them for coffee at Starbucks and one of you can't go, then the other one's still going to be there, so that they don't feel they've been let down. You do have to sign, you do have to get a criminal records check, which is, because we don't want child molesters or something taking advantage of us either. That's very easy to do. We can help you with that. You do have to come and observe a docket so you can get a sense that this is what you want. Beth, Shannon, am I missing anything on mentor requirements?
They can also share, because we're almost out of time.
Okay, so we can talk more. If you have questions, we'll get you that email, and I'm turning it over to Dr. Espinola. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us today. So this is a wonderful program. It's very fulfilling to work for Change Court. I'm very privileged to work for Change Court. I've been with them for about 3 years. I've been working with human trafficking victims for about 10 years. I started first with adolescents back in Florida, and then when I came to Ohio, I reached out first to Judge Herbert, who then referred me to Judge Russell. So I'm a faculty member at the University of Cincinnati and a clinical psychologist. And today I have Juliana, student, and I have her here to help me with the presentation. I'm gonna go as fast as I can. The good news is that I'm very active in social media, so a lot of the information that I was planning to share today will be available to you via videos. So we will reach out to you after with emails and more information about each one of the topics that I think are really fundamental for mentors to understand. But there are some videos. So I have a YouTube channel where I share videos of interviews in the media where I talk about human trafficking. And I also have a lot of videos that focus on skills, so wellness tips to help your mentees live better lives, like just more, improve their quality of life and live more safely, right? So here I explain a little bit about the cycle of domestic human trafficking. So it always starts with traumatic childhood and then goes on into someone exploiting them. And then there is a substance abuse introduced at some point, usually in adolescence. And then they get trapped in this vicious cycle. And the whole treatment requires a lot of people. So it can't just be one person. So we are a whole team and about over 50 organizations that collaborate in different ways that help us make this happen. But very quickly, just to understand the neurobiology of PTSD, it's important to focus on the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. These help us understand these women a little bit better. So when we have a normal threat response, let's say that there is a really, really loud noise in the room, you're gonna jump a little and get ready to respond, either defend yourself or run away from the threat. And that's what is supposed to happen. That's really helpful. That fight or flight response will keep you safe. However, for people who have trauma, that doesn't work pretty well, because what happens is that when they may have the response, the threat response, but they cannot stop it. So it's almost like the amygdala basically is fully controlled by the prefrontal cortex. And they feel like they're on edge, they're walking on eggshells, they are expecting something bad to happen every day, all day. So that keeps them up at night and prevents them from having healthy relationships, prevents them from concentrating. It affects their functioning overall in every way, basically. So that's the most typical PTSD subtype, which is focused on hyperarousal. And that's what most people think of when they think of PTSD. It's like flashbacks and re-experiencing and nightmares. But there is another type of PTSD that people don't think about. It's that 20 to 30% affects 20 to 30% of people. And we do have a lot of participants who experience this. It's a dissociative type. So what happens here is that what happens is the opposite of what I just explained. So when the person fears that there is a threat in the environment, they basically run away with their minds somewhere else. So they show up as, they get usually identified as having ADHD or concentration, focusing problems. One is that there is a decreased amygdala response. So the amygdala just kind of shuts down. And what happens is like they show up as daydreaming all the time, having difficulty being present in the moment, feeling numb, like they cannot experience feelings and emotions anymore. And the same person can go through these symptoms back and forth. So there may be a period of time when they're experiencing a lot of hyperarousal, and then there are periods of time when most of their symptoms are dissociative symptoms. So this is a very helpful skill to keep in mind. I usually show this graphic to explain what therapy is about. So when people come to therapy, they always know what their problem behavior is, either because they know it themselves or someone else just pointed out to them. They could be the courts, but someone else said, like, you need to do something about this. And it could be substance abuse. It could be going back to the same abusive, dangerous person. It could be having panic attacks. There's a reason why people come to therapy. Now, what they sometimes some people are able to identify this, or some people are not, the prompting event. Some people are able to say, this happens to me because of that specific incident. So for example, I was abused in childhood, and that's why I started using substances just to calm myself down and cope. So some people can say that very clearly, others do not. So we help them clarify that. That's part of the therapeutic process. And then something that people often miss that we do in therapy, but the mentors can play a fundamental role in this part, is really identifying the vulnerability factors. So it's very common that the participants will say, like, I go from 0 to 100 in no time. Like, I just don't know why I do this. I get out of control. I was doing great, and then I started using out of nowhere. And that is not actually accurate. So it's not that they are lying, it's just their perception is impaired, basically, and their capacity to analyze what actually took place. So therapy can help them do that. It's just kind of help them calm down, and it's kind of like look at, okay, what else what was going on prior to that? A few days before that, were you sleeping well? Were you eating well? Were you socializing? Were you taking care of yourself? Or this started as usually what happens is that the person may have, let's say, a breakup, right? She's seeing someone, she's very excited to be dating this person, and then this person breaks it up. And then she starts thinking well, it could be she stops sleeping because she's just up at night thinking what happened and why did he do that. And then she stops eating, or starts eating a lot, or she stops exercising, she stops talking to other people, she isolates. And then she becomes more vulnerable to jump into the problem behavior. So she may start thinking, so the links are really important in this chain. So these are body sensations, thoughts, feelings that she may have. So she may start having a lot of sadness, a lot of anger, and she may start thinking okay, he doesn't love me, nobody loves me, nobody will ever love me, and why do I need to stay alive? Those type of things. So they start small and they go into this a snowball. So as a mentor, what you can do is to start identifying this type of things. So if you start hearing that she's not taking care of herself, or even if you don't hear that from her, you can encourage those type of conversations to make sure that she's keeping herself strong, right? So to reduce the vulnerability factors and keep her safe if she were to face a prompting event. So one of the things that I ask people all the time is to rate their stress level. So from 0 to 10, 0 is not a stress at all. It's like my cat, right? Like he doesn't have to pay rent. He doesn't need to worry about work or school. So he has 0 stress. And 10 will be, you are so stressed that you're about to do something that could be harmful to yourself or another person or other people. So rating their stress on a regular basis can help us understand, okay, what to do next. So in cases where the stress is really, really high, we recommend actually like crisis intervention skills. So I have a video for that. If they are like having difficulty sleeping, I have a video for that. So I created different videos that can help you kind of like intervene at different levels. These are the basics. So I will send you that and the links. And that's my cat, who is also a change court cat, like Judge mentioned. And these are, I also have exercise videos that I don't do. So it's not me on the videos, it's other people. I just added the playlist just to make it easier for people to identify this. Social life is really important. That's like, obviously mentors play a fundamental role in this. So we all need to have a social life to be healthy. But sometimes the social life every single time, the social life that our participants used to have was very unhealthy and very dangerous and unsafe. So we need to create something new, right? And we start with that. We start with the treatment team and then the mentors, and then we expand it from there. Self-love and self-compassion, like little girls feel about themselves if they live if they live in safe homes, right? So those are my nieces. I have exercises for breathing. So I explained that. There's a diaphragmatic breathing technique that can be it seems very simple, but it can be extremely helpful for depression, anxiety, and regulating yourself. So I'm gonna pass it along to Juliana.
So one of the things Dr. Espinola mentioned was like having the room to create that space between like how a person is feeling and then what actions are gonna come from that feeling. And one exercise you can do to kind of bring yourself into the present moment that's good for mentors and for mentees is this clear picture exercise. And so this is sort of a multi-step activity that we can go through right now together to kind of give you guys a sense of how to center yourself in a moment. So the first part of this activity is to take a pause and just breathe. That's good for any moment throughout the day that needs centering, whether it's crisis or not, to check in, take a breath, and breathe in. And once you've focused in on the breath, you can start to draw your attention to things that are around you. So all of us are kind of scattered at home, other places. You might notice the chair that you're sitting in, your desk, the light, the temperature in the room, and just the space around you. And then you kind of come more like above the neck. How are you feeling today? How your head is? Do you feel like your face is hot? Right now, this is a pretty low stress situation. We're all kind of in a meeting. So how awake are you at this point in focusing and kind of checking in with the body? So this might be things like your heart rate, if you feel like you're trembling, or if you just feel like heavy or relaxed or tired. The fourth step is to then label and rate the emotions that you're then feeling. So in a time like this, you might say, I feel tired, or I feel nervous for tomorrow, or whatever it is that you might be feeling. Go ahead and attribute an emotion to that feeling and then rank it on a scale of like 1 to 10. So if you're like, I'm tired, but really it's a 3 out of 10, we can say it's a pretty manageable emotion if it's at that level. And then after you kind of take your emotional state into consideration, you can move then to thoughts that you might be having. These are just automatic thoughts that can be either harmful or not helpful to your situation, that might be judgmental or harsh. Or these can be like thoughts you're having that are supportive and are helpful, and maybe more positive, that we might decide to give more energy and more attention to thoughts that are more helpful for us and our purposes. But the fifth step is just to notice those thoughts and not really attribute judgment or meaning just allow yourself to kind of experience them as they're coming. And then finally, once you've really centered yourself in the moment, you've breathed, you're present in the room, you know how your body is feeling, you've labeled it, and you know what's on your mind, you can then start to notice urges that you might be having. And urges are the sensation of wanting to do something. So wanting to take an action, whether it's to continue to sit and to listen, or if you're feeling a negative emotion like anger or fear, then you might want to act out or yell. And noticing those urges before they get out of control is when we can then intervene. So moving forward from this clear picture exercise, a lot of the participants in our program might find themselves in situations where they've either requested a pass for the weekend or have a negative interaction with someone in their program. And so I've sort of created a little graphic to walk you through that exercise in a situation that might be more applicable to our mentees. So what this might look like is that you have a participant who is in a situation, and the first thing that she does is breathe, take a step back, center herself, and breathe. Then she might look around, start to notice the things that are upsetting to her. She might notice what the weather is like that day, what the person who might be related to the incident is. So in this case, it might be a social worker or a program director who denied her a pass for the weekend, and she sees her and they don't make eye contact, and she just notices those things, but stops before you attribute any judgment to them. You just see what's happening. Once you've noticed what's around you, then just again, without judgment, looking towards the body. So in a situation like this, a mentee might notice the heart racing, feeling like, oh, that's like a pressure in my chest, or my face might feel hot, or my hands might be shaking, and we call that the body check. And I think this is a really critical step because emotions are felt in the body before they are perceived by the mind. And so if we can check in with ourselves, we can start to those situations to potential outcomes. So she does the body check, and then she goes to think about or label and rate what that might look like. So in this case, it might be my heart is racing. I'm angry that this person didn't allow me to have a pass or didn't give me the outcome I wanted, and I'm angry. And it's intense. It's a 7 out of 10. And so we would say this person is in crisis and needs some kind of grounding or intervention. But for them in the moment, it's I'm angry and it's intense. And the thoughts that I'm having right now are things like, maybe she didn't give me a pass because she just hates me. She's just always not liked me, and this is a personal attack. Or maybe more helpful thoughts like, is this related to something I did? Could this person be concerned about my safety? And that step is to just notice and take those into account. And once all of that has, and this is a skill you can practice all the time because this is a multi-step process, you will get to this point at the end where then you can think, what are the urges I'm having? And in this case, it might be something like, go yell at her. My heart's racing and my fists are clenched, and I just want to go and yell at her and tell her exactly what I'm thinking. Or you just leave the program, and if you don't feel appreciated or you feel angry, it's like you can give up on it. And I think that is really the master step, is being able to see how these things are occurring in the body and what urges the person might be happening, and intervening before any action is taken that can be harmful.
Right. Excellent. Thank you so much, Juliana. Yes, that's very key. So when you get a story, maybe the end of the story, right? So the final urges, kind of I'm overwhelmed with urges to use. But what you want to know is kind of what happened before that and before that and before that. And ideally, you want to develop a relationship where you can intervene without even getting specifics, but just making sure that you're helping them reduce the vulnerability factors that we discussed before. So the grounding skills can be really helpful to do that. So I will send you the link for that. Grounding skills can be life-saving. They are amazing, really. So there are specific ones that can be used for when the person has a stress 7 or more. There are others that can be used a few times a week, and the grounding kit is for every day. And then here we have a video, but I don't know, we won't have time to explain it, but we can send it to you. And this is Dr. Montgomery, who is also a clinical psychologist, and she works with me at UC Health. And then there's more on validation. So what we're gonna do with Juliana is like, we're gonna create another video with validation, and we'll send it to you. And then always, if your mentee expresses desire to harm herself or someone else, you must call the suicide prevention lines, and we will send you that information as well. So here's more, that's my YouTube with different videos. And I mean, I'm happy to stay for questions and answers. Does anybody have questions?
Well, while we're waiting for people to figure out if they have how to ask their questions, I did want to talk about mentors. There are other things you can do besides a 2-year commitment. If you decide this is fascinating, but I'm scared to commit to 2 years, who knows what will happen in the next 2 years. There are other things you can do short of a 2-year commitment. So one would be to help us create those pre-docket mindfulness activities. You could do a one and done activity like, oh, I would like to come in and help you make some kind of Christmas ornament, or make thank you cards, or teach martial arts, or anything of that nature. I would like to try and direct a book club. You could do that kind of one and done. This year it's really hard with COVID, but in other years we've done a lot over the holidays. Beth has managed to get us tickets to the ballet or to the Festival of Lights. So you could offer to sponsor something like that, or co-sponsor tickets, or help us with transportation. We're a very small group right now, so it's a very doable group to work with. Or sponsor a fun event, in your condominium clubhouse. If you want to do a card night or game night, or pajama night or something, just a one-time event and be done, because 2 years sounds a bit overwhelming. You can do those things. I did, and then I turned that responsibility over to Beth to make something sweet every week during that pre-docket activity. If you like to bake or make something savory and want to create something like that just once, you could do that. We could come pick it up even and bring it to court if you don't want to do that. There's a lot of ways, if you have items you want to donate, clothes, furniture, furnishings, there's lots of ways that you can help if this 2-year idea sounds a little overwhelming.
Okay, so I'm getting questions now. So Kiara says, what ages will be mentoring? They're all adults. All the women are adult women. And then one person says, are there women in need of a mentor right now? What is the current need or anticipated need? So that would be Beth. I don't know, Beth, if you want to say something and more specific about the ages. I think they're like late 20s. The ladies that we have right now, late 20s.
Yes. And currently right now, we have one participant that would probably be eligible for a mentor right now. And the judge generally likes to have 2 mentors for each participant, just in case something happens. So we would need 2 mentors right now.
Okay. And then I saw that, I believe Elizabeth saying that she was interested in mentoring. Any other comments? Shannon, Beth, do you want to say something? No?
I was also going to mention that if you are interested, you're welcome to send me your information about wanting to become a mentor, and then I will send you documentation that we have applications to fill out, and I can email all that to you, a packet of information about becoming a mentor.
If you're just interested and want to see how this works, or to feel good about something, you're welcome to come observe, but you need to let us know. So I'm guessing you have Beth's email. to do that. So just contact any of us as you can find us, and let us know when you're coming, because we're kind of particular. We like to know who's in the court to protect our participants, but you're welcome to come watch. We probably will have some kind of graduation in January. It might be remote, and that is really going to make you feel good when you see that. So just let us know, if mentoring might not be what you want, but you your interests, you can do that too. I know we're running late, but we started late, so trying to give you your money's worth.
Yeah, and then Dr. Harris asked, I think, about the FBI background check. So there will be a background check. There is a background check.
Yeah, it's not FBI though. It's just regular background.
Just regular. Okay. All right. Yeah, and Kiara is giving her email address, Beth. I do have everybody's email addresses that I can send you. So, okay. All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Dr. Espinola and Juliana for putting this together. Do we call you Dr. Lavey? Juliana?
I've got a while before you're allowed to call me that.
Well, thank you very much for putting this together for us, and thank everyone for your interest and your patience tonight.
Thank you. Have a good night. Have a good night.